even in that time period, if, fate willing, Allah willing, Buddha willing, whoever you want to say, whatever you want to pray, Donald Trump loses this seat, there's still this transition period where the police and the white supremacists are still protected because they can show up on the streets and also help him, delay the process. You want to know the tactics for the people who oppress? They love to delay. When they know they're going to lose, they delay things through process so they can tweak here, tweak there. Democrats do it too. Tweak here, tweak here, tweak here. He is going to delay this process as much as possible so that he can stop this from happening. This is, obviously it could come down to a few ballots, and the Supreme Court is going to feel the pressure of the streets. And if the media somehow goes along with the narrative that they always go with, which is these people are being unruly and look at the police, whatever they do, you have to keep in mind, no matter what happens, the white supremacists are going to show up on the streets. And they're going to be folks who are fighting the fascists. And the police are going to be instructed to go aggressively. And they're going to be folks who are fighting that off, peacefully and otherwise. The problem is that they face is that this coalition of folks showing up on the streets, it's not just going to be, Tommy Sunshine's in the world who's always out there. It's going to be the Karens of the world. It's going to be the Steve Schmitz, whatever, the Lincoln Project folks who want Biden to win. And that's the problem is when it really becomes a coalition that's too big for them to even grasp. But you're right. This is a coup right now. That's what I opened with. I thought about it intensely this morning, and I thought, we expect there to be some sort of he steps out and he declares. By the way, he does have those moments. He went out on the balcony of the White House and declared his victory like he was Mussolini. And at the end of the day, it eases up on you. But it's not even easing up on us. He's saying it right to our faces, and it's still not clicking.
Well, and let's not neglect the fact that, Joe Biden being installed as the Democratic nominee in defiance of, Bernie Sanders is having 27,000 person rallies, and all of a sudden Joe Biden gets installed as the Democratic nominee the way that we would install a dictator in a South American country. It's no different. This is a coup. It's a coup on both sides. That's the part of it that's so anger inducing. And that, I think, is the bottom line of what I saw last night, is that these kids are completely in agreement that the only way out of this is to do what they did in Chile and take the foundation of the government and their entire Bill of Rights and their entire, Constitution and rewrite it. It's time. Our Constitution was written by white men who were slave owners, who barely were on the other side of colonialism, right, who came here and completely destroyed the population of this country in some sort of manifest destiny drug dream. And we're left with these archaic, totally outdated rules. Forget about the fact that no other races were mentioned in the founding fathers' paperwork. Women weren't even notated in any of that. So, this was all about this outdated perspective, which in 2020, no sane person subscribes to. So why are we following the rules and the laws of something that no longer serves us as a population?
Because they're in power. Capital is still controlled. I always have this argument with feminists who don't want to recognize class and feminism. And I say, okay, fine. If I'm just going to take the simplest argument for you, all the complaints you have about women not being in the boardroom, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what? These decisions, the way that capital flows, the way that power are decided by a bunch of white men in boardrooms. And so, you're not going to be let in, because the second you're let in at more than a performative level, you are going to be part of that decision making. And suddenly that's about pulling power away from capital forces, the oligarchs. We could, there's a whole other segment to discuss, but ultimately, I mean, I noted in my opening how CNN didn't cover Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation. Like, what? I didn't get an alert on my phone. I learned she was confirmed by just opening up Twitter, and it happened 3 minutes before. And reporters were reporting it on Twitter. But I didn't get an alert on my phone like I do about everything. I don't watch baseball, but I guess like there was a championship yesterday. Like I got that alert. I did not get that alert, which is really concerning to me as a sign of where we are and where media is going to stand in the face of all this in the next few months, and how they're going to portray this, and how they're going to try to influence the quote unquote normies at home who may not be inclined to show up in the streets. And maybe they'll sanitize Donald Trump, or maybe they'll sanitize the Supreme Court and say, they're handling this so well, or who knows what they're going to do. But at the end of the day, you have a police force that's there to protect Capitol just as they were in controlling slaves. And they're, in New York in particular, and many cities across the country, they don't even live in the cities. They're not to mention how they deal with people who have mental health issues. They're not trained to operate to try to keep the peace. They're there to suppress people and to make sure they're not unruly.
Well, and let's not like forget that. I mean, from my perception, and this goes back to Occupy. This is 2011, me in the streets for Occupy. Like, if there's been one thing that I can say that I have learned from watching the police here in D.C., I was in Washington, D.C. on Inauguration Day in 2017. But, what I've observed is simply this. As children, we were taught by our parents and by school that the police protect and serve the people.
Yep.
And it is a devastating realization as an adult when you realize that that is a lie that was told to you by your parents and by school, and that police in this country do not protect and serve the people. Police protect and serve the system.
Yep.
That is their job. And when all of the situation with George Floyd started to heat up here in Brooklyn, my wife and I noticed as we were walking to the Barclays Center to protest, there were 4, 5 officers outside protecting the Whole Foods. And there were a dozen New York City police officers flanking the Apple store.
Oh my God.
And we looked at each other and we're like, that's not a courthouse. That's not a police precinct.
God. These
no, like that's not a government institution. That is a private business that they are helping protect. And there is a quote that I have to reference. It's by the almighty George Carlin. And he said this better than any of us could. And he said that politicians are there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you, and they own everything. Mm-hmm. And those are wise words. And this is not what any like normcore middle American person wants to wrap their head around. They want to think that like all they have to do is show up every 4 years and root for the right team and keep their fingers crossed and that everything is going to be okay. But I think we've reached a breaking point in this country where it is going to take more than radical leftists. It's going to take more than, incentivized, angry, move on liberal Democrats. It's going to take more than just the activist core of this country to enact change. It is going to take everybody. And when we start to see numbers on the level of Belarus and Chile and Venezuela, and when you start to see numbers that you can no longer deny, Arab Spring numbers, like that's when things have to be paid attention to. Right now, like it's really easy to blow off all these protests because the numbers aren't big enough. Like, I mean, I hate to say that. I mean, I was showing up to Black Lives Matter protests in 2014 when there was 20, 30 people at them. So the numbers don't matter to me. The numbers matter to the people who make the laws. Like when they see that, like, the normal folks with their kids and their dogs are marching in protests, that's when they get nervous, because when it disrupts the white people is when they actually start to make changes, because they don't give a shit about everybody else.
But they also have to continue to stay engaged. And so one of the tragedies of the Women's March and the uprisings is that we go back into our norm. There's another crisis we have to deal with. Obviously, we're in the pandemic, so that's a big part of this too. It's cold outside. But at the end of the day, we can't let what happened in 2000, which was also a coup, happen this time around. We need to hold on to our wokeness and mobilize it in whatever ways we can. Thanks for watching and listening to The Nomiki Show. But remember to click like and subscribe on YouTube, and please share on social media. If you're not already a patron, please join us for as low as $5 a month on patreon.com/The Nomiki Show for early and special content. That investment makes a huge difference. We are not corporate media raking in the dough. It's really you guys that are keeping us going. So please consider being a patron. And to our current patrons, thank you so much. We are incredibly grateful to you. We also now have swag. So check us out on thenomikishow.com to get your mugs, your totes, and your stickers.